Okay, I'm back with more on the PC Magic Box. Again, this is a controller, adapter that allows a user to connect video game console controllers to these three ports via USB to plug into your PC. And here it is on my PC. This is my tower, this is my monitor, my mouse and keyboard. So this allows a human to use a video game controller on a PC without having to hack the plug, without having to cut this plug at all. So I'm going to go next now show, in the previous videos I showed, I showcased the Saturn functionality, which again I couldn't, just for the Saturn functionality alone. This is why I bought this device, by the way, for the Saturn functionality. Finding a PlayStation functionality is very easy, and Dreamcast functionality is rare, but with a control like this, I mean, do you really want to use this piece of junk? Do you really want to use this thing? Anyway, there are good controllers made for Dreamcast, like some fighting sticks. I've seen photos of them. They look very good anyway, but arcade sticks, I should say, not fighting sticks. But I don't own any of those controllers, so I can't tell you if it works or not, and I couldn't use it anyway. And not that I couldn't use it, but I wouldn't, even if I had it, or if I lost my train of thought. There's more to say on the matter of arcade controllers on a system, and I'll get to that later. But for now, we're going to just show you, I'm going to just demonstrate the Dreamcast functionality with this Dreamcast controller. Since I have this Dreamcast controller out, I'm going to show that to you first before the PlayStation, as it says here, PS2 port. Here's the Dreamcast plug. Here is the Dreamcast plug port on the Magic Box. And I'm going to attempt connecting it with one hand. Should be easy. Should be. There it goes. Okay. Now again, go to the PC. I'm going to shut these windows as if I was starting from the beginning here. Control panel. To see your video game controllers with these devices, these USB devices, you go to good control panel, game controllers, and 4-axis 16-button joystick. So let me bring the controller over to the PC. Up, you see here, up is actually registering as a button, if it will stabilize here. 13, down is 15, left is 16, right is 14. Now the analog is being mapped to the axes box. The L trigger or bumper is mapped to the 5, and I hate these triggers. Are so, require so much effort to push in. They're not like those nice little snappy things. You really got to push down on them. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like a gun trigger, but it's a bit much when you're playing, one of those games that you have to push the L or R button, bumpers or whatever buttons really rapidly. The start button goes to 9. You see here these buttons here. I don't know the names of them. A, B, X, Y. It's like the Genesis. Looks like a Super Nintendo controller, but they're named like the Genesis controller. A, B, but no C, X, Y, and no Z. That's the wrong screen. Let me go back to the test screen here. Anyway, you can see here that they're all lighting up, and I'll do this test the R bumper, and it goes to 7. So this works fine. I mean, it's reading and everything on here. I'm not going to test this thing with a game. Again, if it works in that Windows screen, it will work with a game. It will work with an emulator. Getting it to work in Windows as a human interface controller is the key to getting these to work with emulators first. Not all emulators do support. I'm going to get to that. Actually, I'll get to that in another video, a more general remarks video. But this is just, I mean, look how bloated this damn thing is. What the hell were they thinking with these two? And these stupid memory cards have a game built in, like a little screen. I mean, it's disgusting. This controller is bloated. it's so horrible. I mean, the D-pad's actually not terrible. It's not really that, doesn't feel that good though. I don't know. I mean, it just, nah, the analog's alright. Analog isn't bad. Definitely, it's better than the Nintendo 64 controller, but it might even be better. I don't know if it's better than the PlayStation DualShock. It's up a bit high. I guess it's playable. The D-pad is not that good. It doesn't feel anything as good as the Saturn controller. The start button's quite far away. These buttons, I mean, you can't. I mean, this is not. You're not gonna play a fighting game with this clearly because it's more like a Super Nintendo controller. So you don't even have the extra, 3 buttons for like Street Fighter. This controller is just a disgrace. I mean, it's like a Super Nintendo controller without a select button, with an analog button. It's just bloated. Look how big it is. It's huge. It supports 2. I mean, it must get heavy when you have 2 of these memory cards in here. I think I have a memory card somewhere. I don't even know if I do. But I hate this controller. Anyway, it does work. So you may want to use this port though. If you, like I said, I don't know anybody who's going to want to use this too much. Unless you love Dreamcast and the controller. I like this system. I really like the system. I think it's a great system with a lot of great games. But this controller is disgusting. Definitely downgrade from the Sega Saturn controller. A beautiful controller, one of the best ever made, to this piece of junk. I think the actual Sega Saturn analog controller may have looked somewhat like this, and this may have been the model. But if anything, I mean, Sega should have just taken this and slapped on an analog right below here. It would have been perfect. Just put a little analog right below, even 2 if you wanted to. I mean, Sega got it's alright. The Sony PlayStation 1 controller is great. The pad's stiff, but it's a very nice controller. And all that the DualShock did was add 2 more analogs. That's it. Besides, that's the same thing. I mean, you can't go wrong. Sega took this and went to this. Actually, I think there's, like I said, another step. They actually went from this to the Sega Saturn analog controller that came with Knights, or was made with Knights around that time, and then went to this. I don't have that analog controller. I don't know if that's really that good. I don't even know if I've ever held it. I've seen it, but I don't think I've ever held it, and I definitely have not used it for a game, so I don't know. And I don't even know if that controller works with this device. I don't think it does. So I think I've read that it does not work with this, but I don't know. I don't know. Again, if you wanted an analog controller to play with Knights, and the emulator worked with analog, I don't know if those emulators, I've not played enough with Saturn emulators to know, but I'm guessing you could just use I would just recommend this as a substitute to the PlayStation DualShock. And if you really like the Dreamcast controller, if you're one of maybe the people that do, you can always use this, I guess, because you have this device here. So let's go to these other functions. Now, I'm going to say the PlayStation function. I'm going to say something about the PlayStation function, and that is, it says here PS2. I don't own any PlayStation 2 controllers. I only own PlayStation 1 controllers. So I'm going to try a PlayStation 1 controller out on it. It should be compatible because I believe all PlayStation 1 controllers are compatible with PlayStation 2. I'm not sure if PlayStation 2 controllers will work on PlayStation 1. I don't think the advanced functionality will work, but they may function. I don't know though if they do. So I'm going to test this. I've never actually tested this before. Because, like I showed in the other videos, the other 2 USB devices that I have actually work with PlayStation 1. So the PlayStation 1 is the most ubiquitous of all console to USB converters there are. It is so common to get something that works with PlayStation 1 and to go to USB on it. For a converter, adapter, I should say, not a converter, an adapter that allows you to plug in video game console controllers. The PlayStation 1 is the most ubiquitous. It is ubiquitous, I should say. It is the most common, the most easy to find. So let's go to the place, and it's good too because the PlayStation 1 is a very easy controller to find. So it makes getting a controller and playing it with an emulator. So using it on a PC and playing it with an emulator very easy. And the PlayStation 1 controller is a quality controller. It's going to work with most games. However, I don't like the pad too much for fighting games. I think it is way too stiff. And it's just a stiff pad overall. You're going to play an older 2D game and you want a really fluid pad. It's not here. This is definitely a stiff pad. The Super Nintendo pad is better. But it is a quality pad. It's not horrible. So let's go to the menu here, the screen on the PC, and let's see. Up. Oh, look at that. Up does not work. Down, left, right. Nothing is working here. Or is it working down? Oh no, it is working. I just missed it here. I'm sorry. Up is going to 13, down to 15, left to 16, and right to 14. So no, it does work. It's just mapping to buttons, not to the axes. I was looking on the axes pad. No, this is all mapping. Except L1, because I believe the L1 on this particular controller is broken, as I had said in another video. So that's not a fault of the emulator, because the DualShock, when I plug it in, should work just fine L1. So I got these controllers very cheap. I was buying these from GameStop when they were getting rid of their PS1 controller. I think I bought this for $2. The first party ones were selling $2, these originals. Maybe even $1. I think the DualShock may have been selling for $2, unless that was selling for $4. But I was picking these controls up very, very cheaply. And I bought the third-party controllers for $1 each. And I picked up some nice ones. So, you know, I guess the L1 button is just broken. If I took it apart and cleaned it or something, it would work. I don't know. I'm not going to concern myself with it now. I own many PlayStation 1 controllers. So let's unplug this. It works fine. So this device does support PlayStation 1 controllers, even though it says PS2. And I can't tell you if it supports PS2 controllers, so I would guess it does, but because I don't have a PlayStation 2 controller. So now I'm going to test the DualShock controller, which is a PS1 controller. Even though it looks like a PS2 controller, it is a PS1 controller. The PS2 controller is almost looks just about the same, but it has some extra functionality. And I don't know if it has this analog button in the middle either. I don't think it does. I think it lacks that. To my knowledge, it doesn't have a button there, but I could be wrong. And the X button's working, the Y button, the triangle. I don't know if you could see that. The two, yeah, this one, the two R bumpers, the two L bumpers. The D-pad is being mapped to numbers 13 through 16, and if these analogs don't work yet, let me start and select. Start and select work. Analog. So you see now it's lit up, and there's the right analog and the left analog. So yes, it works fine. Now for the final part of this video, something I've never tried before, another first. So like I said, I have never tried a PlayStation controller with this device. It does work, and I'm going to try now plugging in 3 controllers just simultaneously and see what happens with it, because I don't know what's going to happen, if any of this is going to work. Hopefully it won't break it. I doubt it will, but we're going to load this thing up. That would really suck if it broke it. I'm just going to see what happens here. And I'm going to zoom in here. If I push a button here, it's reading this button as 3. Now you'll see here the D-pad is messed up. The D-pad, the axis is located in the... I'm not pushing any buttons right now. Nothing is depressed. But yet the axis button is showing it on the... as if I was pushing down and right at the same time, the down right diagonal. These buttons are all responding just fine. Let me try shutting the analog off on the PS1 controller. But nothing. It's still doing that. I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing because it's going to be confusing here. I'm now pushing up on the PlayStation 1 controller. DualShock analog is turned off. You see the buttons for reading. And now I'm pushing a button on the Saturn controller. Now I'm pushing a button on the PlayStation controller. So all these controllers... I'm pushing some buttons on the Dreamcast controller. The Dreamcast controller doesn't even seem to be lighting up. Oh, sorry for losing focus here. I'm pushing up on the Dreamcast controller, nothing. Down, nothing. Left, nothing. Right, nothing. Or is it? Yes, no, it is doing something. 14 is lighting up.